Okay, I will start the talk. I will talk a bit. First of all, thank you for this masterpiece. It was amazing. The whole piece, the actors, everything, all the details. I want to say that I'm anxious because of this, but also because of admiring your work. So I don't want to say something that will not be involved of what you have in your mind about your work.
No, don't worry.
Okay. I want to start by saying a very short story about how I discovered your work. That 2 years before I was in Paris and everybody was telling me that you have to see a wonderful piece called Extinction in Théâtre de la Ville. And I went there, but no one told me that it's in French and it doesn't have English subtitles. And I said to myself that, okay, it's 5 hours. I will stay a bit and then I will leave. And I remember that I was telling myself, okay, in a bit I will leave, in a bit I will leave, but I stayed for the 5 hours because at the end of the performance, it was not at all just the words or just to understand what is happening, but it was the whole energy, the whole atmosphere you created that kept me, and I stayed there and I watched the whole piece and then I left and I wrote you a message that I loved it and I admire your work. So a first question that it's very simple, but because I don't use words in my piece, as you said also, I wanted to ask you, why do you love words so much? Or what do you love in this text of this piece?
Hello. Thank you, Mario. But I have to say something also before, is that I'm very happy to be here with you now, because I discovered Mami last year here in this room, and now since 1 year and a half I'm also the director programmer of Odéon Théâtre in Paris. So Mami will come in Paris. So I'm really happy also of that. Okay, I don't know why I use so much words, and I probably have a memory when I was a teenager, when I started theater, that I didn't do theater in the beginning to, let's say, use my own body or to be on stage or to this kind of things, but I have a very clear memory that I was happy to have like 3 hours or 6 hours per week where I could be very close to the text. This I remember clearly. To read for, and to have a good reason for reading when I was alone. And also I'm French, it's important to say, because the theater traditionally in a certain level in France is really, probably in Greece also, but is really connected to the question of text all the time. And I have to say I hate mostly the traditions of my country, but this I kept it, unfortunately. Usually I work on contemporary authors, mostly. And after, let's say, more than 10 years, 15 years with my group to work on contemporary text, I felt that I wanted to fight against a lot of ideas about what are the texts from the repertoire, texts from the past. One thing I was thinking is basically, you know, when people go to see a show, and they go to see a show of Shakespeare, for example, they go out and they say, Shakespeare is so much contemporary, is maybe more contemporary than any other text from today, which I always found stupid, completely stupid. Of course, I understand that Shakespeare is an immense author and that it's very important to hear it today and that we have all to learn from him. It's not what I say. But what I say is that I was not sure we go to see this kind of theater for a reason of link with us today. I think also we go there to feel the distance. We go to theater to feel the ghost. We go to theater to feel what is not now, what is dead, what is finished. And also this art theater is very particular because we all know that it's a very ancient art And we all know that in our society, for a lot of people, theater is in a certain way dead. And I wanted to explore this dimension, not just to say stupidly, no, theater is not dead, theater is full of life, which I actually don't believe so much. But what is to play an art like a folkloric dance in a certain way? What is to perform a show that the audience can observe that there is a distance, there is a kind of traditional stuff that puts us far to the show. And in the same time, of course, I was thinking maybe the power of the theater will make people feel close to the show also, which I think happens in the end, unfortunately. But so I was thinking, okay, maybe I will do a Chekhov and kill all the characters on stage. And I asked to the Russian translator, there is a famous Russian translator in France, his name is Andrei Markovitch, and he translated Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Gorky, everybody. And I asked him, I wanted to have a play from Gorky called Children of the Sun, which is basically a play that shows a society that is completely dying. In link of what I just told you, this kind of feeling I had about theater. And he said to me, you shouldn't go on Gorky. I know an author that no one wants to perform, that is extremely sad and extremely weird. And I say, okay, I want to read it. And he gave me this Andréjev. And I read a lot, and I was like, I never do a text for a dramaturgical reason or obvious reason. Usually I open a novel, because I do a lot of novels. I open a novel, I read the first pages, and then I feel it's this or not. It's like this. And when I open some text of Andréjev, like for example, you see this text that you see projected when they do the big change on the set. This text called The Resurrection of the Dead. When I read this text, I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I just told you in a certain way. People that are alive in front of us, but what we say is that is dead people coming back. And I completely felt in love. And then it was just an effort of reading with the actors. It was during the COVID, during Corona, so we had time for reading. And we read it, and then we found this weird play that is mostly the show, Ekaterina Ivanovna, this weird play that we thought, okay, probably there is something to do with it. This is where it began.
Okay, thank you. I have a lot of questions. I will ask you some more, of course, and then I will open it to the audience, because I'm sure they want to ask things. Another thing is that I was thinking that all the scenes are so different, and they have very different styles. And I was thinking how it's directing so many different styles in one performance. How it started and how it ended, like to build all these styles together in one performance.
When I was like 20 years old or something, I remember seeing a show in Festival d'Avignon, in the Cour d'Honneur, that was a show of the Polish director Krzysztof Warlikowski. And it was a show called Apollonia. And this show was, I don't know if it played in Greece, actually. Okay. And this show was, in the first part, it was a Greek tragedy, I don't remember which one. And in the second part, it was a discourse about Holocaust and animals by John Maxwell Coetzee, the Nobel Prize. And I didn't understand anything of this show, anything, because I was too young. But I felt something, I thought, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly probably one of the power of the theater, is not to develop one narration like we can see everywhere, one narration on Netflix, one narration everywhere, but that can make a confrontation between different kind of texts, different kind of forms, and the power of the theater can produce a strange kind of layers that create a memory of the bodies, that create something that we feel links, but links that are underneath, links that are not obvious, not dramaturgical in a certain level. So I started a lot to work with, like, for example, I did a show on the American author Don DeLillo, and I did 3 novels, thinking probably the novels will communicate. Sometimes I use different authors. The show you saw, Extinction, is with different authors. I know I need to use different text. And also, it's linked to something I just said, is that I'm not sure that, theater in a certain way today is always in the margin. It's not, this kind of theater, it's not entered in this kind of liberal system, even if the question is open, but you have the possibility to not use the narration as we see all the time. And this is really important for me, to not just saying, okay, you will see a fiction that goes from A to Z, and you will be happy because you will understand everything, and in the end you will be relieved. You will have a good catharsis, everybody. What I want for the audience is to enter in a word, and the shows are long. I have to say this one is a short one. The shows are long, and enter in, the brain of an author, the hand of an author, also in another word, also in a book, this position of a reader that is really important for me. Also sometimes maybe let it go. Some parts saying, okay, I'm tired, I'm bored, I'm frustrated, I don't see the actors. And this experience of non-linearity, non-pure fiction linearity is really what I want to do. It's the basis now of my work.
Okay, and another one question from my side, because I see the time here, is that watching this complex performance with all these details, I was thinking how you start the rehearsals. From what is the starting point? You start with the text in the table, or you want to create an atmosphere? Actually,
we don't read at the table so much. But the thing is that this show, we did it in 8 weeks. So I took 2 days on the table, and then we start. I remember I had some ideas that I wanted. Like, for example, I remember I said, okay, I want to do a little scene, this text that is in the fog. I want to do it with masks and in a little house of curtain. I want to do this. So we had the house, and we tried. And in the beginning, it was really horrible. And then we found a way. I typically remember the set you see that is also the same set in the second act of the show, more or less. I remember when we started to, because it was the first time also I worked with 2 cameras. Before I worked with only 1 camera. When we started to feel this kind of, ancient movie stuff, like the way the actors started to perform, the way the camera was looking, the way this set is also so horribly classical in a certain way, this was working very fast. But I had to work very fast because 8 weeks for doing all this is enormous. I have to say also, when I premiere, I never do a general rehearsal because we're always late. So the premiere is generally 30 minutes more than what you saw tonight, and it's really difficult to see. So I have always bad reviews when I start a show. And I'm always sad because I think, maybe if they come in 1 year, it will be better. But I don't know everything. I don't work with little characters on my desk. I don't do this. But I have, let's say, big ideas of a structure. This I know. I knew, for example, that, the thing that is in the dark, the play called Requiem, where they use autotune, where they sing with a weird voice. I knew that for doing this kind of symbolist play that is completely out of fashion, completely, no one will do this because it's completely weird, I knew that representing it will be difficult. So maybe doing it very simply in the silence, in the dark could work. So it's kind of ideas like this that I check. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works. For example, this idea of making her fly in the end came really late. During the rehearsal, not before. So this is and I have to say one thing that is important on the process is that everybody is here all the time. I don't work alone with the actors. Never happened in my life, and I will never do it because I cannot. For me, playing is at the same level to hear a music, to feel an image. You understand? The landscape is as important as the play. So I really cannot do the play and then, like we do in a lot of countries, asking everybody to come 1 week before and just do the technical stuff. I have to say, even I talk more to the technicians than to the actors and actresses. So it's this, everybody is here, and sometimes maybe it's a sound made from the musicians that create, that we find a scene, yeah, it's like this.
Wow. Okay, I will open the questions if someone wants to ask something.
Having just experienced the show, it sounds really extraordinary that you don't, when you just said that you work more with the technicians and the actors. How does that work? Because the performances were so detailed and invested. It feels really weird that you did that in 8 weeks with everything else. So I'm interested in the process in terms of the acting.
Basically, I was an actor myself, and a very bad one. And a very stressed one also. It's really difficult for me to show myself in front of, not like this I can handle it now. But I mean, really play, really perform in front of people. So I would say I protect a lot the actors in the beginning of the process from this feeling, you understand? Basically, when I talk about technique around, it's also a very nice help for the actors because they are not confronted in a certain level to my gaze in the beginning. Because in the beginning I will say, okay, the camera is there. Then switch the camera, other camera, move. I'm like this with the microphone. Move. Text, say the text, go. You see, I'm like this. So the actors are like, okay, fuck. I have to say my text. I say my text. Then I move. Then the camera is there. And then I say, cut. We do it from the beginning. But from the beginning is 3 images before. So usually it's 9 seconds before. You understand? And then we go back. And then we do it again. And then I say, okay, we have 10 minutes. I want to see the 10 minutes. And then there is mistake everywhere. But the actors and the actresses, what they do in this time is that first they do it 20, 30, 100 times the thing, without thinking in a certain level that it's important, that they have to be good. And then they have all in their bodies, they have all the marks. They know it because it has to be kind of precise. You imagine with the camera, the position, the stuff. Then this is done. And then secretly, we start to talk about something else. Or even sometimes when we do this, I just say one word. I will go to talk to some camera, and I say to the actors, it's not this. Do it a little bit like this. Okay, I try. And then we go. You see? So there is I never talk more than 2 minutes. There is no explanation. There is just by doing, by feeling, the thing that is building up and building up and building up. And also I have to say, I work now with a guy that is here tonight. His name is Eddie, and he's a dramaturg of the show. And Eddie started to be, in a certain level, more than a dramaturg for me, because of course he's at the table with me and talking to me, but also he talks a lot about the, let's say, psychological aspects with the actors that I don't do so much. So we are good together to do different things, and this happened. But I think really that the feeling the actors sometimes can feel as a protection in a certain level can help them to build secretly something. I just have to drive them discreetly.
Hello. It's the first play I've seen from you. And I would like to ask why you chose to put the actors inside and give us this distance. You know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. But actually, it's an important question because it's an important thing in the show. There is a lot of answers I change every time, so it will be the answer of today, okay? At one moment of my life, probably, I was so angry against the stupidity of the critics of my country that I wanted to... one thing I can say to you is that I work because I'm against something. I don't work with. I don't work for you, basically. I work against you. Or if I'm more precise, I work against the people that will hate to not see the actors during the show. You understand? I need it. Since I'm young and I thought maybe it will end at one moment, and it's worse and worse. So at one moment, I needed to say, okay, you want to see good theater? Fuck you. It's closed. So this was some years ago. For this show, I could say two different things. First one is that I worked on the Decalogue. It's 10 movies of Krzysztof Kieślowski, the Polish director, and I did it in a theater. And I remember that in one of the part of the Decalogue, there is a young Polish woman that is rehearsing a play of Tennessee Williams. So there is a scene of a theater in a movie that I do in a theater, you understand? And I remember that the moment I film her in black and white, granulated, I felt more the theater than if it was only theater, you understand? Like the reproduction of theater in theater create more distance, something old and something we all perceive as theater, you understand? It's like when we see a movie in costumes, we feel something way more classic or distance than when we see a theater piece. You see what I mean? So for this show, I felt I need to build this. And maybe the last thing, you had 3 answers. Huh? You're really lucky. I had a lot in my pocket. The last one probably also is that something that the directors never say is that it's difficult sometimes to see, to accept that in front of you people will do something. That in the secret of a rehearsal space, a body enters in front of your gaze and do something. And probably I was in a moment of my life that I was not capable to accept this. You see? So I put a distance also for myself. That's it.
Thank you. It was definitely an extraordinary experience tonight.
Thank you.
And my question is about music. What was the process that you worked with music? We heard music from the beginning till the end almost, with very few moments of pause. And the moment that the set opened up, also we had a more special revelation that there was live singing. So I'm curious about what was the composer, or if what made you choose this type of music. Thank you.
First, I could say that I'm a reader with music. I read with music all the time, but like all the time. It's even difficult for me to read without music. Also, the basic level of the theater I do, if I just take really the basic level, is to grab together those two emotions that are the text, the power of the words, with this incredible weird thing that is music that we don't know where the emotion comes from. And this is basically how I build, in a very, very basic level, the theater I want to do. So, for example, when we are at the table for reading, it's really difficult for me when I feel that an actor is overplaying when we read. I hate this. But most of the time, the musician have a little keyboard or something on the table. Because sometimes I say, okay, let's try something. Let's just put a little bit, let's see. And this is how I feel what I want to do. Here, we worked since a long time with Maxence and Guillaume that are actors and musicians in the show. So it's difficult to explain the kind of complicity we have because it's we understand each other a lot. Here was specific because, of course, there is a lot of stuff that are more, in a certain level, operatic, that are like kind of weird homage to this kind of theater that is not mine, that is far from me usually. I would say like the music you hear in The Big Change is way more close from what we do. So it's difficult to explain. It's difficult to explain, but this is... I don't know. Sometimes I think that in my life, I'm more interested, but you know, there is the French theoretician that say that there is two kinds of theater. There is the theater that is machine and the theater that is landscape. In my personal life, I'm someone from the landscapes. And I come from the seaside in the north of France. This is where I belong. And probably also in my when I was a teenager, the music had this power to transform, because I come from a city that is really difficult, really sad, really gray, really hard. And probably the presence of the music transformed the landscape around me. Was something that changed something for me. So I hope you understand me. It's like if you ask me the question, why you use text in a certain way? Because it is at the beginning of the work.
Good evening from me too. First of all, thank you very much for being here in Greece and presenting your play. I've seen a lot of great cinematography during the play. I've seen angles and perspectives of the actors and of the play that I wouldn't be able to see otherwise. So, what's your view of using cinematography during theatrical plays, which is an amazing thing? And do you believe that this could be a future of theater?
No. Most of the time I hate to see video on stage, I have to say. You know, we are so conservative in theater that when we have a new tool, it's like a big event in the community of the audience that say, oh, wow. Like 20 years ago when people start to dance and do theater together, we were all like, oh, is it possible? But it's true, like 20 years ago, a show like the show of Mario, people would have gone saying it's not theater. So now it's a tool that we have, and that I would say also, in a certain level, everybody has. Because if we're really honest, it's cheaper to use video than to use light, costumes, everything. Of course, this is it's an enormous dispositive, but I mean, if we do simple theater. So it's a new tool. It's a tool that is used in the theater since the end of the 80s. In Germany, they started a lot, and now everywhere. I think it's something interesting, but to be really honest, for me, it's interesting when it creates a confrontation with this ancient, poor art that we do. When you have this tension, looks for me interesting. If we say, okay, no, we do cinema, no, I don't think so. Also, there is, you know, when you ask, if you ask other directors, not all, but some of them, why they use video, they will say to you, because it brings life. For me, it's the opposite. Video brings a lot of death in the show. Because what you feel is the little seconds, milliseconds of distance between the time something is played and the time something is on the screen. So, me, I feel this. This kind of really beautiful death that you feel in cinema also in a certain level, that something is gone. This for me is interesting for the show, but I'm not sure it's the future. Actually, when I see the very young generation, for example, in France or everywhere in Europe or in the world, I'm really happy to see that they go back to tools that are extremely traditional in a certain way, simple, like puppets, like folklore stuff, or you see? So if I'm honest, I think it's a bit, I'm a bit out of fashion now. It's a bit the past. It's not so much the future.
One last question, because we have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for the fantastic performance. I would like to ask you about the music too, if it is possible to find the music...
No.
No.
No, okay. The musician will be outside, probably at the bar behind the theater.
Okay.
Everybody say to them, just fucking record your music.
Okay.
And they say, yeah, but since 15 years. So if you can do finally a big strike for them to put it on the web, could be nice.
Okay, thank you.
We still have... Okay.
No,
So,
no, but
one
I see you doing this, please.
Okay, I remember from yesterday that you said that you're here for the negative perspective. And not exactly that, like that. I don't want to translate something differently. But I'm thinking from yesterday, every minute I'm thinking of this, and every minute I live with it, with this sentence. And I wanted to ask you, if you have, from your very young age, a specific dialogue or speech with you inside as a person, or later as a director, that is the pilot of how you are?
Okay, I give you a brief answer. There is something terrible in theater, is that when people talk about naivety or happiness, they say, use the child inside you. I think children are mostly depressive and are not, you understand what I say? They are not in the position of like shining naivety. I don't remember childhood like this. And also I think that there is a lot of children that I was like this, that have a taste for melancholy. Like they you know, Christine Angot, the French writer, say, if it's not written, it's not, I didn't live it. I live it from the moment it's written. And I told you about music, you see, me listening music. Probably I had this thing that I was having nostalgia in the present. You understand? And I still have this. So I think this thing in me, I don't know if I answer your question, but that's it. Huh? Last year I was there and I took a boat for going to an island. But it was not in summer, huh? It was in spring, something like this. And I was alone in this boat. I'm a huge fan of Angelopoulos, so imagine me in Greece on a boat to an island. I was crying all the time listening music. And I was thinking, yeah, this is, and the shows is the same. You see? We stop with this.
Julien, thank you very much. I hope you come again in Athens with your work. I think the Athenian audience loved your work. Thank you very much.